Taylor Swift going after the White House last night at the Music Awards. And here is what she was talking about: the Equality Act and the petition. She wants to see the Equality Act passed, and she wants the White House to get on board. Watch this.
At the end of this video, there was a petition, and there still is a petition for the Equality Act that now has 500,000 signatures, which is 5 times the amount that it would need to warrant a response from the White House.
She's waiting. She's tapping her watch.
I would love to just survey the audience if they know what that even is, what the Equality Act is and isn't. But she's welcome to her opinion. I will tell you, there's a lot of poison pills in it.
The LGBTQ community believes that it would give them greater equality in the workplace and elsewhere.
Right. And so I actually like the new Taylor Swift song that is called "You Need to Calm Down." I can sing it for you. You know, where she says, if you say it on the street, that's a knockout. If you put it in a tweet, that's a cop-out. I love that. That's like, that basically is Washington in a nutshell. But she's welcome to her opinion. I think that when Hollywood and singers and all go political, it sounds in the moment like it's very popular, and we've seen so many times where it backfires and it blows up. But she's also somebody who went up against President Trump head-to-head in the United States Senate race in Tennessee and lost handily. Marsha Blackburn's our United States Senator from Tennessee.
But can you give her one answer for why doesn't the White House support the Equality Act?
The President and the White House support equality. We don't support pieces of legislation that have poison pills in it that can harm other people. He has, look at this economy, it's equally open to everyone. People have job mobility. The deregulation, what he's trying to do, bringing peace and prosperity around the world, that's to benefit everyone. But when something is named something, it's not always truly that. And so we have to look at the legislation, and if she can get her signatures, that's terrific.
She'll come in and you guys can debate.
And by the way, Taylor, if you can give a shout out to the USMCA, that would be terrific.
This is Kellyanne Conway, who has prided herself on being the first woman to ever successfully manage a presidential campaign, doing her best to diminish legislation that would protect other minority groups. The Equality Act would ensure that LGBTQ Americans are federally protected from discrimination in housing, the workplace, public accommodations, and other settings. It would ultimately expand upon existing laws that protect people from discrimination based on race, religion, sex, and disability. And right off the bat, she condescends to Taylor Swift's audience, suggesting that no one there knows what the Equality Act is, because that's the look that a federal official wants to send to an audience of young people who've taken an interest in the political process, patronizing them for possibly not having read the legislation. While we're on the subject, Kellyanne might have some thoughts about people who are actually lawmakers not bothering to read the Mueller report, which would explain why most of the right is still claiming that his investigation somehow exonerated Trump, despite the report saying outright that it does no such thing. Or does this standard only apply to people who might vote for Democrats? And she goes on to suggest that the reason the legislation is bad is because there are poison pills in it. Of course, she doesn't name a single one, but we're supposed to take this administration, known for its incapability of telling the truth, at its word. She even goes so far as to claim that we've seen other Hollywood celebrities go political and that we've watched it blow up in their faces, which again, she gives no examples of. And that shows that her entire tenuous argument is nothing more than vague platitudes, claiming that a bill expanding protections to LGBTQ Americans that mirror the already existing protections for every other class of people is somehow a bad thing. Finally, Kellyanne tries to diminish Taylor Swift's advocacy by claiming, oddly, that she went up against Trump head-to-head in 2018, where Taylor publicly supported Democratic candidate Phil Bredesen over Republican Marsha Blackburn, who ultimately won the seat. But this election was in no way a referendum on Taylor Swift, who, to be clear, is an artist. It's more likely that the election was a referendum on Trump, and for a state that he carried by nearly 61% in 2016, to then, only 2 years later, have a Republican senator win with only 54% of the vote is not exactly a promising trajectory for the Republicans in a deep red state. And by the way, if failed endorsements preclude people from ever weighing in again, then that's bad news for Trump, who endorsed 75 candidates in 2018 while only 42 won their races. And the figure was worse for Pence, who endorsed 61 candidates, only 20 26 of whom won. And look, Kellyanne Conway's wild distractions and obfuscations aside, the fact is that this administration is and always has been hostile to LGBTQ Americans. In 2017, the administration banned trans troops from serving in the military. It enacted a policy requiring all troops to use uniforms, pronouns, and bathrooms that correspond to their biological sex. It rolled back Obama-era regulations protecting trans medical patients and health insurance consumers. Trump's Health and Human Services Department circulated a memo seeking to strictly define gender as determined by one's genitalia at birth, effectively defining trans people out of existence. Trump's Supreme Court justices have a history of hostility to LGBTQ individuals, and Trump's Vice President Mike Pence once supported the use of federal funding to treat people seeking to change their sexual behavior, as well as passing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act as governor of Indiana in 2015, effectively legalizing discrimination against LGBTQ Americans under the pretense of protecting religious liberty. Because if there's one group we all know is definitely under attack in the United States, it's Christians. Just this past week, the executive director of the Log Cabin Republicans, the nation's largest Republican LGBT organization, for which I'm sure there's not a ton of competition, resigned after the group opted to endorse Trump's re-election bid. Her departure came as more than half a dozen others in the group also left in protest. So Kellyanne might have no qualms about running cover for an administration hell-bent on relegating LGBTQ Americans to second-class citizens, but the arc of history is by no means in her favor.